Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful March the 20th, 2020. Round of the Portes, Big C will be out dealing with some business on this beautiful Friday. I do want to say happy spring. There's a lot of beautiful flowers out here in this beautiful Northern California weather. I know we're all dealing with something, but we still got to take the time to smell the roses, if that makes any sense. I want to say Big C Sports is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, Big C Sports is powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he will do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports powered by so many other platforms that have just been knocking on the door lately, but I really want to just take the time until we fully have that consummated. You can follow Big C Sports by Google and Alexa, of course, but also Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon and Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Talking to another company about some platforms that are available for Big C Sports also. And that's exciting too. I want to make sure in today's climate of coronavirus and sports and entertainment and POTUS and the White House, a lot of things going on, but people are still doing their best to keep their levity. That's always important. It's so important that I give out this national suicide hotline number. It really is for veterans, the crisis line, and they have people who are experienced at helping veterans and their loved ones. There's a lot of people who could really use that line. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can hopefully get some help. I know everybody has to go on and do business if they'll let you go to work. I know state of California, Illinois also joined with California and New York, and there's several other states that are also making some proclamations over the next couple of days, trying to keep people safe, launching a real estate TV show in the spring of 2020. The goal is to recruit 100 real estate brokers to put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's, just like car dealerships. In fact, the car you're driving right now, you probably saw them on some TV commercial somewhere. Also, sports companies, sports teams, sporting events, they're on TV too, even though a lot have been postponed. You can let TV do the same thing for your real estate. I do want to announce that a lot of people may already know about it, but I was hearing in this coronavirus $1 trillion stimulus plan, this $1 trillion stimulus plan, that there is going to be a package in there to postpone any type of foreclosure or eviction activity. I don't know if it's happening today or if it's something that's going to roll out in the next couple of weeks, according to the White House. But I know that will help a lot of people, and I really look forward to seeing that come to fruition, because a lot of people need that help, especially people who've been told that you can't come to work. Also, as we get into some things that are happening in the world of sports, really appreciate learning more about the Surgeon General Jerome Adams. As he says, now's not the time to criticize as much, but that's part of life too. It keeps us all in check. Have a solution. Listen to science. Know your own risk until this is over. And I think that's important for a lot of people to follow. We all got to know that. So everyone can read what's going on in the world of sports and how they've been affected or not by this pandemic that's affecting everybody all over this great country. I know some sports leagues, I will always told Big C, I think sports can unite people, and sports can be the vanguard for a lot of what's going on in our society. Sometimes churches can't do it, sometimes religion can't do it, but there's something about that thrill of victory and the agony of defeat that brings all of us together. You don't have to always agree, but we can still shake hands and appreciate that. Just a couple of things that have happened in the world of the NFL. Running back Todd Gurley signs with the Atlanta Falcons. That good old boy played down in Georgia for the Georgia Bulldogs. Went up California, got some California love. Well, they stopped loving him because he had a couple of hitches in his giddy-up for the LA Rams. So a source says that the Falcons agreed to pay Todd Gurley a one-year deal. I mean, the man still play football. That's my opinion. He's still good enough to get up and down the field. Even though he came short of 1,000 yards last year, he's still a 1,000-yard running back. A lot of that depends on how well the blocking is, too. But I think it's going to be great for Todd Gurley's future. What I know is when a quarterback has a bad season or they don't live up to that $100+ million contract, it doesn't stop the next quarterback from coming along and getting that $100 million contract. I know Matt Ryan plays for the Falcons also. After they lost the Super Bowl and gave up a 28-3 lead, he ended up signing a $155 million contract. But Todd Gurley, after the Super Bowl appearance, and maybe he did have a hitch in his giddy-up. I mean, everybody goes through something. But the Rams, they didn't offer him $155 million. They decided to get rid of him, especially when that $10.5 million contract bonus was coming into play. So he'll have the chance to run back down south to what they call greener pastures. Again, when you're thinking about Gurley, he'll be making a return to the state of Georgia. I think they call that the Peach State. And he was a standout at the University of Georgia. He rushed for more than 3,000 yards in 3 seasons. And with the 25-year-old Gurley, I mean, think about this. This comes about a week after the Falcons released the running back in Freeman. I thought Freeman was still someone that had a lot of miles left on him, a lot of miles on his tank. But they're going to go with the hometown hero, if that makes any sense, at least from the University of Georgia. He's rushed for more than 1,000 yards in 3 of his 5 seasons with the Rams. But he did run for a career low, 857 yards with the Rams last year. His average of 3.8 yards per carry was second lowest of his career. But if you're averaging 4 yards a pop, you're going to end up in the Hall of Fame somewhere if you can do it for a long period of time. I mean, you can't knock a guy that's making, I think he got $45 million guaranteed with the LA Rams, so I'm sure he'll be happy about that. Gurley's been one of the league's most productive running backs, and as a runner and receiver, he leads the NFL with 58 rushing touchdowns since he joined the league in 2015. His 5,404 yards rushing in that span rank him second behind only Ezekiel Elliott of 5,405 yards. So he still has a lot of production to give to the Atlanta Falcons and Matt Ryan. They still got to learn how to turn around and hand the ball off to him. Through 5 seasons, Gurley has averaged about 43 yards and actually 43 catches, including a career-high 64 catches for 788 yards and 6 touchdowns in 2017. So life will go on. I think it'll help Matt Ryan and also that duel of receivers. Julio Jones, my opinion, one of the top 3 or 4 receivers in the league, and then you have Calvin Ridley. So the Falcons, they'll be okay as long as they learn how to run the ball and not try to throw the ball as much. I know they have to justify that $155 million that they gave to the great Matt Ryan, and that's part of life. Also, California love hasn't been showing a lot of love for their running backs. I look at Melvin Gordon, and the LA Chargers decided to part ways with him. We know they didn't want to give him his money last year, and he had to hold out for a while, and then by the time he came back, the Chargers were not the same team. But they got rid of Phillip Rivers also, who threw as many interceptions as any of the top interception leaders in the league. He's right up there when you think about throwing the ball away, turning the ball away. One of the leading turnover, quarterbacks in the league, turnover prone anyway. I know Jameis Winston has his issues also when he was down there turning the ball over a lot for Tampa Bay. But running back, you think about Melvin Gordon. He signed with the Denver Broncos. it's rare that a team will trade a good player within their same division, because the Chargers and the Broncos, if we have, and that's a big if we have NFL football, they'll be in the same division playing each other at least twice a year. So Gordon, instead of headed to his longtime division rival in Denver, he's joining the Broncos according to some reports that are out there. Gordon deal is about 2 years at $16 million, $13.5 million, which is guaranteed, and that's a lot of money considering so many states telling people to go home and stay safe and get rested up. So athletes, when you hear the money, it's amazing how much they have, even when they don't get the contract extension like Gurley, missing out on that $10.5 million. But Gordon did spend his first 5 years of his career with the Chargers, starting down in San Diego. Again, San Diego doesn't even have a team. So this guy, he's been around San Diego, then back to Los Angeles, or Carson, if you look at where they played. And now he's gone up to the Mile High city of Denver. We'll see how it works out for him. But when you think about what the Broncos are going to get, they're getting a guy that with the Chargers, he totaled 4,420 yards, 36 touchdowns on 1,059 carries. It was last year that he engaged in an extended holdout. As a lot of guys, Ezekiel Elliott, he held out through the Dallas Cowboys, and Jerry Jones a couple of years. They gave him his money, but maybe different owners decide to do things a little bit differently. So the Chargers, they divvied up touches between, it was Austin Eckler, if you recall, and then Justin Jackson. So they got two guys for the price of one as far as production. That left Gordon to seek a deal on the open market. And what he found was the pushback that media and also some owners, they have against a running back that they don't have against a quarterback, or even wide receivers for that mark. But I think he'll have a chance to get some fresh air. I don't even know if Big C, is there fresh air left in Denver with all the legalization of everything they've done up in the Mile High city and in the Mile High state of Colorado. But it'll be an interesting fit. The Broncos already had a 1-2 punch in Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman in the backfield. Lindsay seemed to be the preferred guy for much of the last season. But I think Gordon can come in being maybe a little bit more motivated, and that's going to help them. I know the Broncos also released quarterback Joe Flacco, who had the Super Bowl experience, but he failed the physical. Don't really know the outcome of why he failed that physical. But I think Gordon will most likely have the chance to do what a lot of players look to do, and that's to show that they are actually worth the money that they did or did not get. And I know that every player, when they get the chance to go to a different team, sometimes they become a little bit more rejuvenated. Unless you're LeBron James, he succeeds everywhere he goes. The only thing that stopped LeBron James has been the league saying they're not going to play. So that's some news in the world of football. I know there's always more guys that have that question mark, and I wonder if the running backs and the quarterbacks ever talk about it. Oftentimes a good quarterback has a running back that stays in the pocket, and they cover his blind side. So Phillip Rivers had a lot of turnovers last year, and some people maybe blame Gordon that they did not have that stellar all-star running back in the backfield. That may have been one of the reasons why. I don't know if that makes any sense, but they got to blame somebody. But I think he'll find success as he gets the chance to get on his feet again with the Denver Broncos. So we'll see what happens. It's part of the AFC West, and that's if we have football. I hope that we do. The Chiefs also agreed to sign ex-Giants cornerback Hamilton to a one-year contract. And when you think about Antonio Hamilton, his first deal made by the Super Bowl champion since the start of free agency earlier in the week, Kansas City did enter the marketplace a little bit desperate for help in the defensive backfield after losing Kendall Fuller and Morris Claiborne and Bashard Breeland to free safety. Fuller and Breeland in particular, they were crucial to that defensive turnaround they had under defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. But as long as they keep the good old boy Patrick Mahomes, as Big C calls him, in the they got to keep him protected. If they do that, then they'll be fine. Hamilton, 27 years old, was signed by the AFC West rival, the Raiders, as an undrafted free agent out of South Carolina State in 2016. Then he was claimed off waivers by the Giants before the 2018 season. He played 13 games before going on injured reserve, and we'll see what happens. Sometimes you just need a new start. You got to have a a fresh start, and when you're given that fresh start, oftentimes, players will play better. But I'm really interested in the fact that California teams have not been showing California love to a lot of the running backs. Think about what you have in Gurley. Think about what you have in Gordon. And that's a lot of yardage being left out of the backfield from California teams. He won't get to play in that new shiny Los Angeles stadium for the Chargers and also the Rams. Both of those players, Gurley and Gordon, who would have ever thought, as they were talking about completing SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, that they have these two all-pro type running backs that are no longer on the team. But when you look at the quarterback spot, then it's not going to, even the Chargers have changed quarterbacks too, so they're really kind of going through a rebuild. They were just in the AFC playoffs just 2 seasons ago, and we see the Rams, they were coming off a playoff-less season after losing the Super Bowl to the New England Patriots, missed the playoffs last year. So those teams are changing, their offensive look going into the season for the 2020 kickoff. If we have the 2020 kickoff, I really wonder if we're going to have football. And amid everything that's going on, we really could use some football to really give us all the chance to take that Big C pause away from some of the things going on that have been caused by the coronavirus, which at one time was called a Democratic hoax. $2 trillion for a Democratic hoax is all fair in love and war. Now, in America, we all love our sports. It's $1 billion industry. There's a lot of teams that are being affected by not having that $1 billion industry around. But as we go outside of the United States, the reason that I love sports, it really spans the globe. As I recall growing up, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, the Olympic flame, it finally lands in Japan as doubts grow over the Tokyo Games. Really, who wants to go and sit in a stadium that seats between 60 and 100,000? With all the stuff going on, I hope and pray that it's over. I really do hope and pray that it's over very, very soon. It'd be a nice, we're in spring, flowers are starting to bloom. Maybe we can have some vaccine that will put the coronavirus on its place. It's always good to hope and listen to medical science. So the flame, it came to Japan, completing its journey from Greece. And it's symbolic, really, when you look at the International Olympic Committee and all the local organizers who maintain, ironically, and I'm skeptical even saying this, that the Tokyo Olympics will open in July. Now, there's a lot of people who doubt that. I'm one of them. But when you think about history and how we're all judged by doing the right or wrong thing in history, for the first time in 56 years, the torch is in Tokyo. And I hope that the torch will be something that will bring people together. I still think, as far as I can remember, going back to the Olympics in '96 down in Atlanta, where Muhammad Ali was stricken with Parkinson's, and he was still making the effort to light the torch. And as there were many people hoping, I hope he doesn't drop that torch. You had so much empathy for Ali. At least I know that I did, and I would love to see that happen again. I mean, there has to be a light at the end of the tunnel, just like it's sunny in California. It was just raining the other day, and it's spring, and everything seems to be in bloom. And I would just hope that the same thing happens with science in this coronavirus. I know there's some vaccines that show some promise, but I'll leave it up to the medical science to figure out if it's real or if it's just hope. So, Tokyo 1964 Olympics, it was also been the venue for the 1940 Olympics, which were canceled by World War II. So canceling an Olympics it might be a little bit different than canceling, let's say, the NFL or postponing the NFL, or if you look at canceling the NBA or postponing the NBA, or Major League Baseball postponing Major League Baseball. I know that we all are pulled together by something, and we can only sit around and pay attention to so many negative things for so long without some type of outlet. We got to have it. I mean, listening to some of the doctors and the scientists that are all over the news, mental health is important. We got to stay active. Unless you've been told to self-quarantine, like a lot of people have, athletes and coaches that we've all heard of, we got to find a way to still, keep our minds focused and keep our minds active. And sports has done a lot to make sure that happens. So when you think about sports, you think about the Olympics, USA Swimming, they also urged the U.S. Olympic Committee to ask for a delay to the Tokyo Games. Now, think about this. The head of the swimming of the U.S. Olympic team, that committee has pushed for a 12-month postponement, kind of like the Big C pause. They just want to postpone it. They're not saying cancel it. We know it comes around every 4 years for the Summer Games, and if they push it back 12 months, it's more important, in my opinion, to make sure that everybody's healthy and safe. And I know everybody says that, but actions speak louder than words. Money over health, or is it health over money? We'll see what happens as they decide. But if you're an athlete and you're a swimmer, do you really want to go and get on an airplane and fly several hours to Tokyo if the games are not postponed? I mean, for the United States swim team to decide that they're asking for a 12-month pause, I think people are smart enough to put their health over the money, and not everybody's going to do that, because there's a lot of countries that couldn't care less. They hide a lot of what's going on with their media anyway. So we're going to see what happens. When you think about the Olympic Federation, that has more power to alter the shape of the Olympics than anyone in the United States, when you think about it, it brings about 550 athletes and its billion-dollar broadcaster, the great NBC Sports Network, and to show every 2 years. $1 billion is a lot of money when you think about it. That's 1,000 millionaires to make $1 billion. That's how much money NBC is pouring into it. So there's always a push to get people to make the money, irrespective of health. And I know that everybody has their own thoughts on that. I remember, as I listened to so many media people, I was listening to Coach Steve Kerr talk when it came to so many issues. He's a very prescient man that coaches the Golden State Warriors, and just like anybody else, he was one of the first ones that stood up for social justice as a professional basketball coach, going back several years ago when Colin Kaepernick was all over the news. Now, I'm going to juxtapose what Colin Kaepernick was doing that a lot of sports leagues are doing now. Mental health is just as important as your physical health. You don't want people going crazy, if that makes any sense. That's really why we give out the military crisis hotline. Mental health is also important. And when Colin Kaepernick came on the scene with the Black Lives Matter movement, I know LeBron James, also a lot of other athletes stood behind it, and Dwayne Wade, several other athletes. But there was a lot of pushback by a lot of media, and some coaches, they were just reticent to say anything. They didn't want to get involved because maybe they were told money's more important than people's mental health. That's part of what the Black Lives Matter movement was about, mental health and about social and economic justice. Now, that made a pause in the world of sports. The taking of the knee, if we can all recall that, and it created such enmity that a man like Colin Kaepernick, and I'm not speaking for him, I'm just giving my own thoughts because no one's a monolithic group, but there's a lot of mental health issues in many communities, especially when you look at young African-American kids that may come from challenging environments. You know how the country's shaped over the last 400 years. So there's a lot of mental health issues going on that a lot of men who are prescient enough, they wanted to call attention to that. We were asking for the help of the federal government. We were asking for the help of law enforcement. And when people, I just got to juxtapose something. When Mayor Bloomberg was running New York City, and he had the stop and frisk mentality for law enforcement to stop and frisk black men and women too, for the most part, he didn't do it against white kids. You can't tell me that they were trying to cut down on what they call drugs, and they didn't stop and frisk Wall Street executives. I'm just telling you, that's real talk, and people who work in Wall Street, they know that. They have more income, more opportunity to go out and buy these substances that Mayor Bloomberg wanted to stop and frisk against. And 9 out of 10 of the people that were stop and frisk, it was illegal. That's why they stopped doing it. They were innocent. 9 out of 10 innocent. Why didn't they turn around and give equal time to white guys? Why didn't they stop and frisk white guys? And people say, what does it got to do with Colin Kaepernick? If you understand one of the reasons that a lot of African American men, and I'm speaking for myself and also many, many years of wisdom and dialogue about how do we make life better, not only for myself, but people that came before me, my elders, and also the people that come up behind me. Part of what happens in every society, in the African American society, and you can go back to the Kerner report that was issued back over 50 years ago, where they studied race and the issues that affect people of different race. For one of the first times in the history of the universe, at least in the United States of America, a lot of our white brethren, they're feeling that same anxiety. Theirs is caused by coronavirus. It's not being caused by stop and frisk. And as I know, people may not want to hear this too, but if you really wanted to cut down on drug use, you could probably find more guys buying drugs on Wall Street than you were in black communities, guys going to work, trying to find work in an environment where even POTUS have the biggest housing discrimination, not renting properties to people of color. You have part C on the application, and you can Google that too. So that same type of mindset that people need to be healthy, it's affected African Americans too. And every time we've spoken about it, even Dr. King, I have a dream. You want to judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. People always faced it with enmity, and they made it seem like we're anti-American, or we're antithetical to the police, or antithetical to law enforcement, antithetical to the military. We're not. Even going back to, and I want to make this point because it's important, as I hear a lot of my sports brethren and medical doctors saying we got to find a way to pause, to have mental health. Remember, as we focus on this government shutdown, and the anxiety is costing people because people are losing jobs, not really sure what the future holds. Remember, as we talk about this pandemic that's causing some people to lose their minds and to find out what the doctors say and scientists say, African Americans have dealt with a lot of things. So I say we've been the vanguard for a lot of things. I tell Big C that. I go back to the Tuskegee experiment, where there were 400 African American men that were injected with syphilis by the United States government, and they were not told about it, and they were allowed to go cohabit with their spouse or girlfriends, and they were not told. They were doing the experiment on how to treat different well, this Tuskegee experiment was about a syphilis that was injected into black men to study the effects on the human body. They can only do so much with mice, so black men were the experiment for that. They didn't do that to white people. They did not inject 400 white men from Harvard with syphilis and allow them to go around and cohabit with their wives and girlfriends to see if that experiment would help make them safe, if they could find out if that experiment would actually cure it. They did that to black Americans. Think about that. And then Mayor Bloomberg, several moons later, says, hey, let's stop and frisk that same group of people. And you have people like POTUS that also have the housing discrimination. Let's have housing discrimination against that same group of people. Why am I bringing that up? It's important, as white Americans are having their mental health issues also. Think about that. How when the opioid crisis hit, there's a lot of people trying to solve that problem because it deals with mental health. So one of the times that the universe will make you juxtapose your experiences with what other groups are going through, you got to look at how the anxiety has rippled through a lot of people. And how do we fix it? We fix it by talking about it. Not by saying someone's un-American because they point out the Tuskegee experiment. Not to say that someone's un-American because POTUS keeps saying the China virus. I thought it was called the coronavirus, but he keeps saying that for whatever xenophobic reasons. But you can read The Boy Who Cried Wolf and understand of how many times you listen to that. Remember, this pandemic at one time was called a Democratic hoax. But he capitulated. He did the right thing by signing the stimulus bill. $1 trillion, $1 trillion. And I hope it gets into the hands of individuals, whether it's $1,200 for an individual or $2,400 for a married couple. I hope it happens before the end of this month for a lot of people. I know a lot of industries, especially in California, that have been hurt really bad. So why did I tie in the Tuskegee experiment? Why did I tie in Colin Kaepernick taking a knee and being told he's anti-American and all that garbage? And even POTUS said, fire the SOBs. POTUS said that. You know, the fake news guy, this democratic experiment, the guy that said that it's a China disease, that same person said fire those SOBs. You remember that? Remember that? Well, a lot of people do. We're going to take the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause, and I just want to make sure that I do my part to just have people think about whatever anxiety we're feeling as a whole, especially white Americans. A lot of black Americans have been put through that for years, about 400 years of it. We still rise. A lot of that's because of faith in God and also the belief in science. We're going to take the Big C timeout. As we come back, we're going to talk more about how we can all treat each other better and have empathy for each other as we go through these moments. All right, we're back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on the two apps that I love called Google or Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll ding from 3,000 miles away, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. Also, really appreciate launching a real estate listing channel on TV in the spring of 2020, already underway in some markets due to whatever's going on with governments and governors telling people not to work and not to go outside except for the necessary, like police officers, of course, they keep going to work. Fire departments are still working. People in media, hospitals, you know, there are grocery stores, gas stations that are still open. Some restaurants are open, but they only open for drive-through. So if you don't have drive-through, there's a lot of people in Northern California that are being hurt. There's some restaurant owners in San Francisco that are actually giving away food instead of having it go bad. Man, heart's really out for the people who are dealing with that. So I want to make sure that I do my part by letting people know that we'll all get through this. You know, hearts and prayers are great. A vaccine would be even better. Just like the Tuskegee experiment, the government did that to 400 black men. So there's a lot of times people don't trust the government. And I hear some people even saying foolishly, oh, this is some type of Democratic hoax. Well, we've already heard that, and then he signed a bill for $1 trillion. It was never a Democratic hoax. And for those people, I've even heard some African-American men tell me, oh, African-Americans cannot get coronavirus. That's garbage. Doesn't matter what color you are. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Anybody can get a virus, just like anybody can get a cold. So we still have to do what the scientists say. Dr. Fauci is great. Surgeon General Jerome Adams is great. There are a lot of them. Sanjay Gupta is great. But your own medical doctor also, if you get the chance to find out what your medical doctor is saying, that's something we all want to do, and there's nothing wrong with sharing that knowledge. So again, as I go to the next thought, when people are feeling anxiety, and I'm not even being flippant about it, listen to African Americans about how to go through it and not get stuck in it. Sometimes things happen, and you got to press through it. There's a lot of times, and I'm telling you this, even with the GI Bill, that was not given for white. That was given for white men, not for black men to get loans and houses when they came back from the war. That was egregious. The 40 acres and a mule aside, there's been so many times in this country, even banks today still redline where they don't let African Americans buy properties in certain neighborhoods. That's why when you go into a lot of exclusive neighborhoods, unless you're very, 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 very wealthy, they don't let you get the loan. They still have ways of doing that. And if you doubt that, why do they ask you what color you're on the loan? I'm working in the lending business. If you mark other on the application, it's considered white. The computers don't know the difference yet. That's yet. A lot of people don't know that. You're African American, they ask you if you're black, white, or other, or Native American. If you mark other on the loan application, the computer considers you white. A lot of people didn't know that. How'd you learn that? You learned it through Big C Sports. That's how you learn it. That's a clue for a lot of people trying to get loans. Also, I want to make one more statement about this. As people go through anxiety, and we have this billion-dollar industry that's been put on pause because people don't want to get sick. And I applaud medical science for telling us about how to stay healthier. It's not a death sentence for everybody. I know as they test more people, there are going to be more people found to have that virus. But it's not a fatality for everybody. We have more people passing every day from the flu so far than from this virus, based on some doctors, medical science. You can listen to your own source, but everybody still has to do the safe thing, and that's stay healthy, practice the distancing, washing your hands and washing your face, staying away from large crowds like they were doing down the beaches in Florida. I'm paying attention to what I know, and I try to share what I can, and hopefully help somebody. You know, when you think about it, everybody has to get through it, and we will. We shall all overcome. It's going to take medical science. I believe prayer also helps. That's just my opinion, and everybody has a right to their opinion. Would you believe, as I was talking to Big C about there's a racetrack down in Southern California, I want to say it's Santa Anita, where they've had about 27 or more horses that have passed away or died based on whatever it was. Not necessarily really known what happened. Some people think it might be blood doping. Who knows? But a lot of millionaires, when they're trying to win millions of dollars in a horse race, they're going to do what they can to get the advantage also. And I don't know exactly the cause for that many horses, having fatalities, and the state of California shutting down that track for some time. But horse racing is quickly learning that it is not totally immune to the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. It's had other sports to deal with it, and now horse racing is also dealing with it. When you think about the Louisiana Derby, is still set for Saturday. That's the world. Think about this. We talked about what's more important, your money or your health. The world's richest day of races is scheduled to go on in late March in Dubai, where they build the cities on sand, and money's like air. Everybody seems to have it until the oil runs out. We'll see what happens with that. But they still have it set to run in Dubai. Several tracks across the United States and worldwide remain open. However, there was a worker in New York testing positive for the new coronavirus and shuttering another racetrack, and jockeys from growing, they're reluctant to ride in these races. The horses really don't have a say-so. It depends on the jockey and the owners and the people that decide if they're going to run these horses around the track. Remember Santa Anita. We're all living on borrowed time. But think about this. If one jockey gets positive test in coronavirus, remember they postponed the Kentucky Derby also. If one jockey tests positive, then it's going to cause more problems. Following that lead is Japan and Hong Kong. Many of the United States decided to close that general public gap, but keep running horses only with essential personnel. But again, this virus is out there. I'm hoping that science will solve it. But horses, what's more important, your health or your money? The jockeys are just as important as anyone that would sit in the stands and figure out how they can get better and stay safe, and especially for their families. It's not necessarily that a person's symptomatic or not. If you have that virus and you take it around someone who's more, immune system compromised, it could cause more problems. So I just want to make sure I make that known too. Animals, don't know if they're affected by it, but no animal's going to run a race without humans. That's just real talk, and a lot of people know that too. So everybody has to do what they think is the best in their own interest. I want to bring up something else too. We say sports will galvanize people. Big C, I've always believed that. I told you, in my opinion, Adam Silver's done a great job as commissioner of the NBA. They're still trying to figure out how to play games. But some of the players, they're human too. Without games, NBA players, they're using their platforms in new ways. You think about certain players, Kevin Love, he did his best to reassure in a skit and scare public in a sense. Denver's Jamal Murray, he sat at his piano, played theme songs. Atlanta's Trae Young, that guy can really shoot the basketball balls also. He's put some socks into a trash can. He was shooting socks into a trash can. I think when Kobe Bryant had that movie about the basketball, and he started up in that skit where he was also a kid shooting socks into a hoop that he had made in a hoop, maybe a garbage can. I remember doing that when I was a little boy too. But there's some players that are doing their best to bring some normalcy to the world of sports. And I know that we all got to do our part. Some people don't want to talk about it. They just want to pretend that it's not there. But that's not how we fix anything. There's also Miami's Gordon Dragic and his native Slovenian told people to stay inside. Mainly listen to our doctors, listen to the scientists, and make sure that we do whatever we can to keep our kids safe and ourselves too. Almost 20 current and former NBA players have partnered with the NBA and the WNBA for a new sort of public service announcement as the world continues to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. And I know that everybody you can get burned out on listening to information. Some people say it's negative information. I've even heard people say they don't want to know if they have a virus. They don't want to know if they have high blood pressure. They just believe that God's going to help them. Well, if we know, then we can seek a cure no matter what it is. It's always good to know our health. It's always good to know our health numbers. It's always good to know if that check engine light is on. Now, I love the PSAs released earlier this week. It went for about 3 minutes at some players. And it's just a continuation of the conversation about coronavirus and how we can do better. And money can help also. But we really gotta lower the anxiety that a lot of people are going through. And the way you do it, some people want comedy. You know, everybody has to do that. Still, we gotta exercise. We gotta know how to keep our children safe and stay in isolation if we have anything that the doctors tell us that we gotta do. We just gotta find a way to do that. And I want to do my part on the Big C Sports Show every day. Whether people want to hear it or not, it's not for everybody, but it's for people who want to listen. It's just my opinion. And if you don't, you can be a part of the solution or part of the problem. Like the Surgeon General Jerome Adams says, I want to use our platform as part of a solution. Telling people, listen to your doctors. Listen to the Surgeon General. Listen to the medical scientists. Science will cure this. It will. It's worked in the past, and it's going to work again in the future. It's not a hoax. It's not fake news. And you got to understand that people that are telling you it was fake news and a hoax, they're on TV every day after signing the $1 trillion package. So who was the boy who cried wolf? That's why you should listen to your doctors and medical science. That's my opinion. Listen to who you want to. Everybody has their own opinion. 10 of the most profitable sports leagues in the world, from professional football in the United States of America to soccer in Europe, in cricket in India, Big C, they're all doing the Big C pause. They're all pausing. They're all taking the time to put people over money, health over money. I've always thought that was more important, and it's nice to see that more people are doing that. So just I want to make sure, and again, everybody has their own opinion. But it's nice that we all can see that we're headed in the right direction. Number one, keep ourselves mentally healthy, get our exercise, make sure we do that. Don't let anxiety overtake you. That War of the Worlds skit that came over the radio back in the early 1920s, I believe, in the 20s or 30s, people thought it was real, that there were people from Martians that were attacking the Earth, and people panicked over that. Anxiety. Well, some people still think the world is flat, and they have a right to think that. Maybe it's just the educational system they grew up in. But as you read, you realize the earth is not flat, it's round. But I do want to say some of the sports leagues that have put health over money, you think about 11, the most profitable sports leagues, they will continue to survive. At least I'm hoping so. And I'm hoping that individuals who are affected by the league's stoppage in work, that they'll come out and help. I know Major League Baseball, a lot of the teams collectively have pledged over $1 million each to help their staff, to pay them as if the games are still going on. That has to be commendable. But there are a lot of sports leagues around the world that bring people together and fill up stadiums. Sports have become one of the most lucrative parts of the entertainment industry. That's how we like to do Big C Sports, entertainment and news, as well as politics, which everybody's doing now. If they have the capability, if they don't, that's okay too. But you think about this, especially people going through the anxiety of not having work or being told to stay home. It's $1 billion industry. and it comes from various sources. Sports leagues and sports teams, they profit from sponsorships, from ticket revenues, and that's really going to be slashed lately. Transfers of stadium rentals, broadcasting deals. The NBC deal is $1 billion for the Olympics. You better believe there's some pressure to say, hey, just play the Olympics. Maybe we don't need people. The athletes, we can sacrifice the athletes, but we got to get that money. So if you're an athlete and they're telling you that you can be sacrificed like the Roman days of the Roman Colosseum, do it at your own. That's your choice. Sports teams are usually owned by billionaires. Remember that everybody wants to be a millionaire. $1 billion is $1 million times 1,000. Do the math. $1 billion is $1 million times 1,000. Well, there's some owners who are worth $5 to $6 billion, $4 and $5 billion, $3 billion, $2 billion, even $1 billion. There's a lot of money in the world of sports. It doesn't always trickle down, like trickle-down economics doesn't always trickle down to the employee. So I implore the baseball teams that have decided to pay some of their staff and vendors as if they were still making money anyway. That's important. Would love to see the NBA and also the NFL get behind that. Baseball really has been the vanguard when it comes to that, so I really, really love looking at that. And think about some of the teams, the most profitable sports leagues. The National Football League is about a $13 billion industry. That's billion with a B. Remember, it takes 1,000 millionaires to make $1 billion. The National Football League's $13 billion. You don't think they want to play those games? You don't think they want to play? That's why they're talking about postponement as opposed to playing. And I hope they can play the games too. That means that we're on top of this pandemic. I really hope that they can. There's a lot of people that go to work and feed their families because of a sport that we all love called NFL football, Major League Baseball. The vanguard in making sure that the employees that work those games are going to get paid. Pay them as if the season was still going. I think that's the right thing to do. Everybody who owns a Major League Baseball team is a billionaire. Do the math. It takes 1,000 millionaires to make $1 billion. And there are many owners that are worth multiple billions of dollars. They can pay people. Also, NBA basketball. The vanguard in the sports leagues that said, we're going to take the Big C pause on NBA basketball. They took the pause, Big C. I know Adam Silver wants to get the league going. He wants to make sure that they play games. There's a lot of people that make a lot of money based on playing games. I hope we can get the games going too. It's cathartic. I think sports is so cathartic for a lot of people. And if you ever been to Las Vegas lately, there's a lot of the sports books. They're all hurting. Everybody's hurting. The people that run the hotel industry, they're hurting. The vendors that supply food, they're hurting. Think about who's on the hook. The Las Vegas Raiders, formerly Oakland Raiders, left Oakland because of money. Their stadium, I think it's called Allegiant Stadium. It's about 80% completed. So when you have a stoppage in the workforce and people have to go home as opposed to risking being sick, are they going to tell them, hey, push forward anyway, we got to get this stadium open. It's a multi-billion-dollar stadium. We're on the hook for it. Well, what's more important, the money or the health? I know Mr. Davis went to from Oakland to Las Vegas because someone gave him, from what I understand, nearly $1 billion, and hey, who wouldn't go? But isn't it ironic that they may be on the hook for that money right now? Because they may not kick off the league in time, and I hope they do, so I want to think positive. I just want to be realistic. But the National Basketball Association, the NBA, $7.4 billion, some people say $8 billion a year league. And I would love to see more so than just the players that have given money to help feed people and to help get through some issues, whether it's staff. You know, most of these owners are multi-billionaires. It takes 1,000 millionaires to make $1 billion. There's a lot of owners worth multiple billions of dollars. They can make sure that they pay their employees that have been told to go home because the work is non-essential, according to some governments and according to the league. They can do that. You just got to have a heart. Just do it. A lot of the foundations can do it. Arthur Blank for the NFL, I think the great Arthur Blank, which is a co-founder of Home Depot, he's contributed $5.4 million. That's $5,400,000. That's one owner. If Arthur Blank has the heart to do that, every owner in the NFL can do that. They really can. If they have the heart, take care of your employees as if they were still working. Just because you have several $billion, it doesn't mean the person that works your concession stands is going to be able to make their rent payment or mortgage payments or their car payments or student loan payments, whatever it is. When it comes to student loans, I do think the White House did a good thing, and they're suspending the interest payment on student loans for several months, and that's a good thing, and they're going to reconsider that too. So I think POTUS deserves congratulations on that. Even though he called it a Democratic hoax, he never capitulated. But people know that he did it, and I just hope that we can all make mistakes and go for it. But that's a good thing to waive the interest on student loans. The Indian Premier League cricket, which is a huge industry in India, $6.3 billion. That's affected by the coronavirus pandemic also. English Premier League for soccer, $5.3 billion. There's a lot of money in sports. I know people are told that sports is not a serious business, but it is. It pays a lot of mortgages. It puts people through schools. It does a lot to bring our society together. It is also part of our mental health makeup. I believe that too. A lot of people are struggling right now playing replays on major sports networks because they don't have content. A lot of guys, if that teleprompter goes down, they don't know what to say. So the owners of these networks will say, well, let's just play replays. We don't have guys who can do live talk and real talk anyway. I'm doing the show today by myself, and that's okay. But I know what I'm talking about. It doesn't mean you have to like it, but I footnote a lot of things that I talk about too. So everybody can Google. The National Hockey League, NHL, is $4.5 billion industry. They're all doing the Big C pause. You notice that Big C? They're all doing the Big C pause. They're taking a pause. They're making sure that health is put over money. That's important. Australian rules football, $2.5 billion industry. I mean, there's so many other industries that are into the billions of dollars, and I know that we all love our sports. I hope that we can realize that if you think about this, the NFL, which is the number one sport in America, even though European football is by far the most popular sport in the world, some people say soccer is the most popular sport in the universe. National Football League valued at $13 billion. Before this calamity happened with the coronavirus, they were expecting it to be about a $27 billion industry in the next 10 years. We don't know if that's going to happen now, but I'm sure it will still climb that ladder. It shouldn't come to any surprise to anyone, considering that the NFL has 29 out of the 50th richest franchises in the world. 29 of the most 50 wealthiest franchises in the world. Dallas Cowboys come in first place with that. I know the people down in Texas, man, they're really missing what's going on in the world of sports. I wanna close with something strong. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on an app that I love, and just give it a try. Say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate that. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. Launching a real estate TV listing show in spring of 2020. It's already underway in some markets, even though, a lot of governors are telling people stay home, but we're still, people still want to pay their mortgages. They still want a place to live. If McDonald's can do it, if car dealerships can do it, the car you're driving right now, they probably have commercials on TV. Food companies put commercials on TV. Sports teams put commercials on TV. Lending companies do commercials on TV. You'll hear some of them as our sponsors. You can do your real estate on TV also. May even consider starting up a real estate podcast channel. And because so many times, especially in California, a lot of people are being told to stay away from contact, at least that 6-foot measure for at least up to April 7th. We'll see what happens with that. But may also be launching a real estate podcast channel, part of the Big C team, and that's going to happen this spring. I want to make sure that the kids that are home and they're missing out on their meals, oftentimes in many school districts around this great country of ours, sometimes people can't eat unless they go to school and get a nice breakfast or a nice lunch. The train will always come through to deliver people from place to place, just like food will come through. I implore, if you're a parent or a child and you're dealing with hunger, go online to your local school district and see if they have a food program, because I know a lot of the places, the school districts in Northern California, God bless them, there are a lot of people that are giving out free food for kids to eat, at least a lunch and a breakfast. I don't know if they have anything in place for dinner. That's important to mention that. I know you want to know who won the game. I know you want to know what's the score. I know we're all kind of in a lachrymose moment because we don't have our favorite sports teams to kind of, get us out of whatever we're dealing with. And sports is a panacea for a lot of people. But if you don't have food in your belly, the last thing on your mind is who won the game. And I really commend especially the world of Major League Baseball, the owners in Major League Baseball that are making sure that their employees can eat by giving them paychecks. That's important. They've committed over $1 million, especially here in the Bay Area too. San Francisco Giants, Oakland A's, they're a part of that. I want to see the NBA and the NFL do the same thing. I know Arthur Blank has to have a heart of a person. Has to be. Even when they built the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, he got put a lot of people to work in that region, making sure they had the training, and that affected a lot of people too. So that man has a beautiful heart. I just hope a lot of the owners out there that have the money, remember, $1 million, you got to be 1,000 times a millionaire to be a billionaire. 1 million times 1,000 is 1 billion. There's a lot of billionaires that can give money to school districts and food banks and do their part. There's a lot of our broadcast brethren, they can announce those things too. Tell people where to go and get food. If you're hungry, who cares who won the game? That has to be something that we all do. I know we'll get through this pandemic. I know if we pay attention to medical science, pay attention to our doctors. Stay away from the fake news. It was never a Democratic hoax. It never was. But I'm glad that that stimulus package was signed, the $1 trillion. It's going to help people. It's going to help the individuals put money in their pocket. It's going to help the small businessman. If we can give tax breaks to trillion-dollar companies, our Wall Street brethren, the ones that never have to worry about stop and frisk, those guys. If we can do that, tax breaks for the top 1% of this country, we can feed our people. We can feed everybody. No kid should ever have to go to bed hungry. And I know that I do my part. I volunteered my time at shelters. I've given money, even if you're going to a grocery store to ask if you want to donate money to feed the needy. We can do that too. I do that. I want to make sure we do that. A lot of service industry employees, they don't have tips coming in now. So everybody can do their part. It's not just our governors. It's not just the White House. We can all do our part. And I hope that we will. I know things will get better. As we always say, Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown, and he was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. As I always say, Big C, what are you looking forward to in this sports universe? I just want to make this statement again. Everybody has a way of dealing with things. We are all better when we realize that we should have empathy for our brethren. I ask for the people that believe in prayer, you believe in God. I would just implore all the churches to get together like the African American community did during the Million Man March. Let's see if we can get a million churches around the world, in fact, 1 million churches around the universe to ask for help from God. I mean, if the atheists can get together and broadcast whatever they want to, then all the people who are actually believers, it wouldn't hurt is that at say 12 o'clock midnight, we did a mass prayer and asked God for some type of help in solving this pandemic. For you religious people, you know what I'm saying. If you're atheist, it probably went over your head. but the religious community knows what I mean, and I hope that we can all come together and do some good for our brethren. As we always tell you, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, you can follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.